Holy smokes, we are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football. Speak Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do us well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and your friends if you want to support this college football Rebel Outpost channel with a donation. Hit the $ where you make a comment, and we'll get to your comment as soon. We'll get to your super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome everybody into the studio, into the very sick studio filled with germs. Everybody, welcome on in to the corner, the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway in Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a legend with your comments in the comments section. And with your phone calls later in the show. We are 9 days away from college football. Florida State and Georgia Tech. We're going to be doing a watch party, a live watch party. We're going to be doing that show. So you're going to be at home watching it. I'm going to be watching it. Of course, I can't put the football game on our stream here, but we're going to be watching it together. You can put your comments live in real time. We'll open up the phone calls during halftime and after the show. We have a lot of fun. We're just watching the game together, yelling at the refs, yelling at the quarterbacks, yelling at the coaches. It's going to be fun. I do not know how my voice sounds because I can barely hear it because my ears are plugged. So we're just going to continue on, and hopefully everything works out. And I do apologize. I'm going to be coughing, the whole works during this live show. I'm going to try to keep calm and cool and collective. We are recovering. I've been sick I was sick when we did those Friday shows. We did an emergency Friday show. So we did 2 shows on Friday. I was sick. I've been sick for at least 8 days. Pretty much ever since we came back from our vacation. So hopefully we'll be recovered by hopefully in a couple more days. Now, we've got, I've missed a lot of reports out there, reporting stories and everything. I don't think I missed a whole lot. I've missed some. Texas Longhorns, running back situation, holy smokes. Iowa, quarterback battle going on, holy smokes. Cade McNamara struggling in the scrimmage. Brennan Sullivan, we talked about it. Brennan Sullivan was a very interesting portal pickup from the Iowa Hawkeyes during portal season. I was shocked he was going to be the starting quarterback at Northwestern. It was his spot. It was his job. But he might just be the starting quarterback at Iowa in the not too distant future. We'll be keeping an eye on that. Ross Dellinger puts out an article about the playoffs, the G5. We're going to go through a little bit on that article, not too much, because I don't think my voice can handle it. And of course, thank you, Maria. Maria's been taking care of me. She's been doing a great job. She's been listening to me day after day after day after day, if you can imagine. It's been brutal. It's been rough. I probably should have went to the doctor, should have went to the hospital, but I did not want to go. So we have been, we've been fighting it together. Thank you, honey. I do appreciate it. And I appreciate her giving me the opportunity to do a live show here on Thursday, August 15th. Today is also the day that is the deadline for Florida State to file a notice, or Clemson or any other ACC school, to file a notice of withdrawal on or before August 15th to be able to join another conference, a new conference, the following July 1st. So July 1st, 2025. For months, we at Peek Around the Corner have been basically telling you our position was that Florida State and Clemson were not going to file a notice of withdrawal. That was the chatter behind the curtain. I think it's clear that information was correct. And the number one reason why we believed it was because there was no advantage for Florida State and Clemson to file a notice of withdrawal. Can't find an advantage. I can find a whole bunch of reasons why it would be risky. No advantages. And I've been open. I've been doing this live show day after day after day for months and months and months and months. You guys know this. Nobody has ever expressed to me an advantage for Clemson and Florida State to file a notice of withdrawal. Not an advantage in the courts. ESPN's not going to feel the pressure. Why would they feel the pressure? They're going to continue on as is. ACC It's not going to put pressure on them to go to the negotiation table. Florida State and Clemson have, in their own pleadings, have said, we're still a member of the conference. We're still a member of the conference. They're not going to switch that up right now. It made no logical sense whatsoever. Now, is it a victory for the ACC? No. It's not a victory for the ACC. It's nothing. It's just another day. It's just really another day. Now, a lot of people have put a lot of emphasis on today. We haven't. But a lot of people have. A lot of people have taken this and now are saying Florida State must find their voice. They must step up. They're losing the PR game. I don't even understand what any of that means. Just like I did not understand why Florida State was going to file a notice of withdrawal on or before August 15th. I'm open for somebody to have it make sense to me. I'm here. I do a live show. We have a live call-in. You guys know how we do this. I let you guys talk and disagree with me and say, Greg, wake up. Greg, wake up. I'm here. A lot of what is being said still doesn't make sense to me. And I've been called everything. I've been called every name in the book, really. People keep sending me, Greg, you see what they're calling you here? They're calling you a prick there. Fine, call me what you want, but we've been telling you the truth. At some point, that has to mean something. Maybe it won't. Maybe I'm just a schmuck who believes that being accurate is important. We've been saying for months here at Peek Around the Corner, if Florida State had filed their notice of withdrawal, or Clemson, on or before August 15th, that we'd be taking the L today. I'd be happy to take the L today. But it ain't going to happen. But here's a bigger point, and why it's so important. Florida State and Clemson, they know where they are in the pecking order. They get it. They know it. Did you read the Matt Brown article? Did you read his article? His reporting just a couple days ago? His reporting confirmed what Brett McMurphy reported, which, by the way, confirmed what we've been saying since 2 months ago. June 15th, we had Bettini and Sankey walk out of the Holy Smokes Theater primetime show. More confirmation. Oh my goodness. More confirmation. We told you those reports were coming. We told you guys, remember everything I said to you. I said, and there will be reports coming confirming what we are telling you. It's not a shot against Florida State. I'm not anti-Clemson. I'm just telling you what the lay of the land is. I'm not here. I am not here to wave pom-poms. I'm here to tell you something. We try to be as accurate as possible here at Peek Around the Corner. Matt Brown confirmed the reporting of Brett McMurphy. It just so happens that right now, Florida State and Clemson are not the number one targets for the Big Ten and the SEC. It doesn't mean they're not going to get there. It doesn't mean that they've quit trying to get there. But they're not, they know. Clemson and Florida State have received enough information back to know that the bigger implosion the ACC, the better off Clemson and Florida State is. If they exit the doors, just those two together, it's very unlikely that the Big Ten and the SEC will scoop them up. We've been saying this for 2 months now. And Matt Brown just confirmed it again. His sources telling him the same thing. Josh Pate, his sources telling him the same thing. Brett McMurphy, Dennis Dodd, Heather Dinich. Okay, so now, if you can wrap your arms, your mind around that reality, no matter what the fancy spreadsheets tell you, if you can wrap your arms around that reality, now you understand Florida State and Clemson's game plan. And if you understand Florida State Clemson's game plan, well, filing a notice of withdrawal today or before today make absolutely no sense. And what else absolutely makes no sense is for Clemson, for Florida State, to go on some soapbox and declare I don't know. What do you want them to say? They're in the courts. They're battling it out. They're spending money. I wasn't going to get all worked up today. I was not going to get all worked up today. Florida State and Clemson are doing all they can in the courts and behind the scenes where it's really important. Trying to build up those relationships in the SEC, in the Big Ten, while at the same time building out a Big 12 option, which they don't want to do. No offense to the Big 12 fans. That's just the way it is. There's still a lot of things being put out there that just is not reality. Again, Brett McMurphy, and I put it on my Twitter account. I tweeted out yesterday. He was on some show. I don't know. Just go check out my Twitter account from yesterday. Brett McMurphy was on a show, and he's basically saying, look, North Carolina, Virginia, that's what the SEC wants. That's what the Big Ten wants. We call it here at Peek Around the Corner, North Carolina and the connective tissue of North Carolina. Brett McMurphy's putting pretty out there. North Carolina, Virginia are the schools that the SEC wants, that the Big Ten wants, and of course Notre Dame. We have tried to explain the reasons why the last couple months. A lot of it has to do with student enrollment. A lot of it has to do with academics. It does. Oh my goodness. Academic matters. Of course it does. A lot of it has to do with demographics. A lot of it has to do with disposable incomes. A lot of it has to do with the SEC presidents want virgin country. They want to expand their footprint. A lot of it has to do with the fact that Oklahoma's president, Arkansas's university president, Mississippi State's university president. They want to attract a more diverse student base. They want to attract Virginia, North Carolina, growing population, that demographics that's coming into the college years that has disposable income. Those students go to colleges. There is a lot more than just these spreadsheets, these charts. They just never... They look beautiful, don't they? I mean, they really look good. Color-coded and all those. That's great. Fat guy from Minnesota. I can't make one of those. I guess I'm just too stupid. They look beautiful, though. They absolutely look gorgeous. But wow, they're never accurate, are they? So, Florida State and Clemson know that they're valuable brands. Huge fan bases that spend money, that view their games. But they also know the pecking order. So they want a big implosion. Big implosion. They don't want to make it, so they're the only twos that can walk out of the conference. So keep that in mind. In every report you see, when I'm talking, when another YouTube college football channel is talking, when someone's tweeting and posting on Twitter, on the message boards, just keep this in mind. The title, it's not about when, it's how. It's not about when Florida State and Clemson can leave the conference. It's about how do they leave the conference. The bigger the explosion, the lower the price tag, the better it is for Clemson and Florida State. Let me ask you a question. Thank you, Ricky, for your support once again, your generosity. Gifted a membership. Don in Kansas, you've been gifted a membership. Please say thank you to Ricky when you get a chance. I do appreciate it. Thank you, Ricky. Ricky and Don, you both are here by Knighted once again. Cloak and Dagger. Thank you, Ricky. Appreciate it. Ask yourself a question. If Florida State and Clemson knew, absolutely knew, 100%, that they had a spot in the Big Ten or the SEC or both, if they knew for sure that they had a spot in one of those two conferences, what would stop them from writing a big check today to get out of the conference? The problem is here, they know that they don't have a spot. Not a guaranteed spot. They don't have a spot. That they're not the number one targets for the Big Ten and the SEC. That is the reality. And we've been talking about this for months. And Matt Brown's reporting, everyone else is reporting, and I told you at the time, everybody was being told the same thing. And I'm going to go one more, and then we're going to get on to the other stories. Then we're going to come back to the Florida State Clemson August 15th. Again, I keep hearing, Greg. You're so naive. The reason why the Big Ten and the SEC are telling these reporters that the Big Ten and the SEC really, are really not interested in Florida State and Clemson, that they're not the number one targets because they don't want litigation to be, they don't want to be considered torturous interference and all this other stuff. That's not how it works. It's not how it works. Just isn't. If that was the case, then these sources wouldn't be telling all these reporters that North Carolina and Virginia are the number one targets of the Big Ten and the SEC. Logically, it doesn't work, right? So that's not... The real reason is because the story that we told you a couple months ago is dead on accurate. Followed up by a whole bunch of other reports that we told you was coming, and it happened. So keep that in mind. Florida State and Clemson are doing all they can. And no, they're not going to get up on a soapbox. They're not going to announce some... Not while their lawyers are battling in the courts. And here's another thing. There is no horse trading going on. ESPN and Fox are not working behind the curtain. All that was... I'm trying to be kind, right? I'm sick. I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to be a gentleman. There's none of that going on. So, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that is not happening. It's the battle in the courts. I want to thank you all. I'm not going to do a roll call because I don't want to. We're just going to try to get through this. I appreciate you all joining us. Thursday, August 15th. We will get back to the Florida State Clemson August 15th story. We got more stories to hit upon first, then we'll get back to it. But I do want to thank you all for joining. I appreciate it. And again, I apologize for my voice and all that is coming with it. North Carolina Athletic Director Bubba Cunningham tells Sportico, we've been approached numerous times about different private equity options, but nothing was appealing enough for us to pursue any further. The cost of capital for us is fairly low. They've got some good ideas and thoughts about some other uses of the capital, but we're not there yet. Cunningham declined to name the private equity firms he's spoken to, but according to public records obtained by Sportico, one of his contacts with UNC alumnus Newman Delaney, son of former Big Ten Commissioner Jim Delaney. So just a couple things. One is the cost of capital for us is fairly low. The cost of capital for most public universities is fairly low. It's those other items, right? And we've talked about this before. It's those other items that a private equity capital company can do for you as an organization. The NBA teams, which private equity has filtered into like 60% of the franchises, they have taken great advantage of the other relationships that private equity firms have with other companies. And this is why, if you read the stories, this is why a lot of NBA franchises have included private equity as part of their ownership of their franchises. Can a private equity firm, private capital, whatever, are they going to be able to offer these institutions an advantage of relationships, some sort of other deals? Not just about the money, but it's about those other, you want to call them intangibles, that's fine. We shall see. We shall see. But it's never been just about the money, because schools can bring on fairly capital that's not, they get good deals, right? These universities already get good deals. It's about whatever other things these private equity private capital companies, investment firms can bring to the relationships. So just want to point that out. North Carolina has had discussions, so has pretty much everybody else. Texas, holy smokes. Holy smokes. Number 4, Texas suffered its second season-ending injury at running back Monday. Again, I know this is Thursday. I've been sick, but I wanted to bring this up. When freshman Christian Clark tore an Achilles tendon in practice, the school announced Tuesday. Texas said Clark will have surgery and will miss the remainder of the year 6 days. 6 days after announcing C.J. Baxter, last year's opening game starter, will undergo season-ending knee surgery. Jaden Blue, who has appeared in 23 games for Texas, rushing for 431 yards, is now expected to shoulder the load this season. Wow. Look, nothing against Mr. Blue, but we're going from C.J. Baxter and then Christian Clark, who they had high hopes for, true freshman. Now they got into Jaden Blue, and the season hasn't even started yet. You're going to get wear and tear in your running backs during the season. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. I, like many of you, I've got Texas finishing second in the SEC. I got them going to the Final Four in the playoffs before losing out. Who do I got them losing to? I think I got them losing to Georgia in a 1-5 matchup. It definitely hurts to see that go down, Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers. Now, get a load of this. Quinn Ewers said of the injuries a post-practice video session with reporters Tuesday night. Injuries do happen. It's just a part of the game we play. I think we have guys that are going to be more than capable of stepping in and filling up these roles. Ewers rushed for 5 touchdowns last season and gained confidence in his running ability. 29 and 30-yard touchdown runs against Baylor and Kansas. Man, maybe I'm a little faster than I thought, Ewers said. Ewers said Tuesday that if more running responsibility falls on him, he's happy to do it. Ultimately, I'm just trying to do whatever I can to help this team win football games, Ewers said. So if that means I need to run more, so be it. So now the quarterback's going to run a little bit more? Wow. Wow, wow, wow. And then we go on to Ross Dellinger's article of this morning. The new college football playoff is here. Are more changes coming in the near future? Well, there is. There's no question there is. The question is, what are the changes going to be? Now, I skip over a large part of this article. A lot of it focused on the group of 5. The group of 5 leaders are not interested in relinquishing the automatic spot in the new expanded playoff. We're not touching that, she said. But MAC Commissioner John Steinbrecher asked, in what other ways can those 5 conferences create more interest and more revenue? Everything is on the table, new AAC Commissioner Tim Pernetti said at his annual football media day. Before launching into possibilities on the proverbial table, let's understand what's definitely happening. This December, in January, an expanded playoff the likes that college football has never seen. For years dating back to the 1970s, college football leaders discussed a true expanded playoff because of the academic calendar, a fight over money, and most notably, the influence of bowl games that never happened. In the new expanded playoff, there's an automatic bid for each of the 5 highest-ranked conference champions and 7 spots for the next highest-ranked at-large teams. The automatic qualifying structure allows for the winners of the SEC, Big Ten, ACC, Big 12 to get into the postseason. A 5th automatic bid paves the way for the highest-ranked group of 5 champions to enter the field. So, let me just say this clear. And we're gonna hit upon it in the article. But before we hit upon it in the article, this right here, the automatic bid for each of the 5 highest ranked conference champions, that's not going away. That is one of the few protections. But it is a protection. So, in 2026, the Big Ten and the SEC, they can implement a lot of changes to the playoffs if they want. They can add automatic qualifiers. They can expand it to 14 schools. But one of the things they cannot do, one of the things that the Big Ten and the SEC cannot do is to strip the 5 highest-ranked conference championships away in this 8-year playoff term, not all the way into 2031. Excuse me. So, the group of 5 will have a representative in the college football playoffs from now, this season, into 2031. So keep that in mind. What happens after that is anybody who knows what happens after 2031. But keep that in mind. That protection was granted when everybody signed it on the dotted line. For the G5, preserving the college football playoff spot is of the most importance, both because of the automatic access, which they have into 2031, and the millions in revenue distribution. The group of 5 will split about $115 million annually, or about $1.52 million per school. While that's not the amount originally expected, G5 leaders were planning to receive twice that distribution. The cash is consequential to schools' budgets in the lower resource group, most of which hover around $30 to $60 million annually, or a fraction of those in the power leagues. However, there is fear that access and distribution for the G5 might be short-lived. While the commissioners agreed on a new 8-year deal with ESPN to televise expanded playoffs, they stopped short of settling on a specific format for the final 6 years of the contract. They did. But those 5 conference champions, that's a protection. It is. Instead of putting the power of the future format in the hands of the industry's 2 behemoths, the Big Ten and the SEC, as well as media partner ESPN, they could change the format. They could. They've left it open, Oresco said. I don't know what's going to happen. It's all up in the air after the 2025 playoffs. Speaking of Yahoo Sports from her conference football media days last month, Navarro has acknowledged that concern, but believes the value to a partner like ESPN is holding a national FBF championship, one that incorporates all 133 teams, not just half of them. We don't have the leverage or the value commanded by a few, but that access piece is very important to us. It changes the equation drastically if we don't have that. During the CFP negotiations in February and March, Power Conference leaders threatened to remove G5's automatic bid, but to their credit, it never came off the table. What if it would have? If we had lost access, we would have taken some kind of action, Oresco said. That would have been ruinous for us. For that reason, the next 2 years are the most important in the history of the G5. They've got to win. I hear it in the commissioner's room, Oresco said. You don't really belong. We're giving you that spot that could have gone to a higher ranked team. While the highest ranked G5 champion is assured a spot, it is possible that the team is not ranked in the College Football Selection Committee final top 25. If this scenario happens, the committee will choose the best G5 champion, CFP leaders say. It nearly happened last season when Liberty was the highest ranked G5 champion, was ranked number 23. If an expanded playoff existed, the Flames would have earned that automatic spot as the 12th seed, surpassing 11 teams ranked between number 12 and 22, including 10-2 Oklahoma, 9-3 LSU, and 9-3 Notre Dame. And then it continues on to talk about how G5 has been weakened by realignment, and they have. We're a farm system, Liberty coach Jamie Chadwell says to Yahoo Sports. There are, by many projections, Narvaez, we've got Boise State, Air Force, UNLV in the Mountain West. There's Memphis in UTSA in the AAC. Seth Hennigan, the great quarterback of Memphis, he's going to have a say if Memphis gets to the playoffs or not. Liberty, of course, with Salter, the great quarterback. Jacksonville State, Toledo, Miami, Ohio in the MAC. And Appalachian State, and my favorite to reach the playoffs, Texas State in the Sun Belt. Of course, the G5 isn't the only group with something to prove. The ACC and the Big 12 are on the proverbial clock. When applying the 12-team format to the last 10 years of the CFP, while again considering realignment moves, the Big 10 leads all selections with 38, followed by the SEC 34, the Big 12 19, ACC 15, G5 10, and Notre Dame 4. The new playoff revenue distribution formula based around CFP success delivers 58% of the money to the SEC and the Big 10, an amount that frustrated many league administrators, but one that could change in the future. There's a look-in clause, right? We've talked about that. It's going to reevaluate each conference success over the first 4 years of the playoffs in the 8-year deal. If the Big 12 or the ACC have enough success between now and 2027, perhaps they'll get a larger chunk of the cash. That's the goal, said Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark, who led the discussion in having a look-in provision as part of the contract. Same goes for the ACC. We have to play better and get more teams in the playoffs so that in the next 6-year cycle, when it's reevaluated, we'll get more revenue, Miami Athletic Director Dan Radakovich said earlier this year. Meanwhile, the future format remains ambiguous. And here is the PATC money shot of the article. During the playoffs negotiations in the spring, the Big Ten proposed a 14-team playoff featuring multiple automatic qualifiers for the power conferences, 3 each for the SEC and the Big Ten, 2 each for the ACC and the Big 12, 1 reserved for the G5 champions, and 3 at-large spots. The 3-3-2-2-1 concept was considered a compromise from an original proposal that included 4 automatic qualifiers for each the SEC and the Big Ten. In the end, the college leaders settled on the distribution model and left the future format undecided. Finally, in this article, this is the last we'll do of this article, Oresko said he is one of the several commissioners to fight against any model that grant multiple automatic qualifiers to each power league. But he believes such a format may be the industry's future if the richest leagues use their muscle to get their way. In an interview with Yahoo Sports from Big Ten Football Media Days last month, Commissioner Tony Petitti suggested that such a model isn't off the table. Without revealing specifics of the proposal, multiple automatic qualifier format, Petitti said, if leaders get the postseason right, his league and others could then have the ability to play stronger non-conference matchups. So there it is. The playoffs beginning in 2026 are going to be looking different than they do now for 24 and 25. We just don't know what the result of it is. We don't know how it's going to look like. But if the Big Ten and the SEC agree, if their advisory group, whatever they talk about in there, if they agree, then it's done. The SEC and the Big Ten have the power to change the format. They cannot strip away the top 5 conference champions getting an automatic berth. They cannot strip away some protections that Notre Dame got as an independent program. So there's a couple things that the Big Ten and the SEC can't do. No, we're not going to a super league until at least 2031. Just isn't going to happen. There's too many contracts. There's too much agreement. We have the college football playoffs to 2031. Excuse me. I know what Kyle Whittingham said. I'll even put that on the board here. Hold on. Let me let's see here.
I think there is a major realignment coming, and it'll be a big one. And I think it'll create even more of a divide and an exclusivity for the teams that are on the right side of that line. 20 months to 4 years. How about that for a time frame?
Okay.
And it will, in my opinion, it's going to look very much like NFL minor league. I just see a expansion of the playoff with that to 16 teams, and the short version is super conferences. I think it's going to be boiled down to 40 to 60 maybe super teams in the super conference, and wouldn't be surprised if they don't play anybody but other super conference teams. Make that division and in as far as who you play, and like I said, a full-blown playoff, and whether or not the employees or the players will be employees officially remains to be seen, but I think that's very likely, and I think that's where it's headed.
Okay, so that was Kyle Whittingham. Again, this is about the third time in the last year, I think, that Kyle Whittingham has talked about the creation of a Super League, of a 40 to 60 team league. He in this interview with Casano, he said he's taking a shot that maybe in 20 months, to 4 years, he could be onto something, or he could be on something, but he could be onto something. Except I don't know how it could happen in 4 years. I do not see how it's happening in 4 years. Also, let me just say this. We at Peek Around the Corner, we have always said that a Super League could happen. And we don't know what it's going to look like. And a lot of it's going to determine on who creates the Super League. Is it going to be an outside force, or is it going to be the Big Ten and the SEC creating it? I don't know. But the timing of it, we said, when other people were saying different, we said they're not going to be a Super League in 2026. Ridiculous. And we don't think there can be a Super League until 2031, if it happens. There's just too much stuff, too many contracts. Way too many contracts to break, including the college football playoff contract. So, again, we're going to follow the Super League story when things pop up, when people report things, when we have information. We know that there's private equity out there forming consulting groups, knocking on the doors of the big programs saying, private equity, come on aboard. Let's create a Super League. We know that there was one trying to create writing down a 48-team Super League. I'm not a big believer that it can happen before 2031. If it does, I will take the L. But beyond that, yeah, it could happen. No question about it. And how it looks like, I have no idea. And we'll follow the story if there is a real story going on. So Kyle Whittingham might be correct in everything he said. And maybe he's even correct on the timeline. I don't have a hard time believing the 40 to 60 team and everything else that he said. The timeline, I do not agree with. But that's just me. And I think a lot of people would agree. But having said that, I don't agree with the timeline. I also want to say one more thing about the Super League. That I think people I don't think they want to talk about. And that is, people say it'd be better off for Alabama to go to a Super League. They would make more money. Okay? It's better off for Ohio State to be part of that Super League. They would make more money. Okay? I can see that. It would be better off for those 32 teams, those 48 teams, to break off. They would make more money. I agree. But here's what I don't agree with. I don't think fact, I know, but I'll say I don't think. So I don't want to get everybody upset. I don't think Fox and ESPN are a big I don't think they favor the Super League. I don't think Fox and ESPN want anything to do with the Super League. Now, maybe Amazon will. Maybe somebody else takes over. I think Fox and ESPN like to fill up the rest of their inventory with games that at least matter at a certain level. I don't think they want all the big brands to come together and use their leverage like the NFL does to get the best contract. I think ESPN and Fox kind of like this separation of conferences, and I think it's advantage to them. So what I'm saying is I don't think ESPN and Fox are sitting here behind the curtain going, Super League, Super League, Super League, Super League, Super League. And I don't think they're working on a Super League. In fact, I know they're not. And that's why when I see people's reports saying ESPN and Fox are really working, they're horse trading, Florida State for this and Clemson for that, and they really want to get this done now. They really want the Super League done now, and blah, 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 blah. No. That's not what's going on. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to be a jerk again. I'm the most hated guy in college football, YouTube. No question about it. No question about it. So I wanted to say that. Also, G5. On our Friday live show, what was it? Friday, August 9th. On our second live show, we talked about the breaking news. Well, not breaking news because no one has said it except for the smallest college football YouTube channel out there, Peek Around the Corner. But we have information and we stand behind it 100%. And we will for days, weeks, and months until it's known to everybody that it's out there. That there is this conference or conferences, deep talks with the media partner or partners in establishing a flex weekend, semifinal weekend. It's been 6 days. No one else has talked about it. I thought maybe someone else would talk about it by now, but they haven't. I don't see anybody really coming out. No conference is going to really hammer down on this until there's governance changes. They might even wait until they see the new format of the playoffs. Because remember, they're not going to wait. The format of 2026 and how that gets, that's not going to be decided right after the 25 season. It probably is going to be decided during this season, or right after this season, what the 2026 playoffs are going to look like. But having said that, I do expect some report before the end of the season, before the end of the football season this year. At least one report somewhere, somehow, that is going to detail the fact that a conference or conferences are in deep talks with a media partner or media partners in establishing a flex semifinal weekend that runs independently from the tournament, from the expanded playoffs. So I want you to keep that in the back of your mind as you read reports about about conferences trying to get more revenue, what the G5 conferences might or might not want to do, what the ACC and the Big 12 might or might want to do, or the Big 10 and the SEC talking about automatic qualifiers. If they get 3 or 4 automatic qualifiers, does it really hurt the conference to have a semifinal weekend? Things of that nature. Keep that marinated in the back of your mind, what we reported when you're hearing stuff about conferences trying to create revenue. Also, the other part of that Friday live show, we talked about how conferences are in deep discussions with media partner or media partners in regards to conference games being played in very non-traditional college football dates throughout the season. I expect that. I would think most definitely that's going to get reported sometime during this college football season. So there is going to be a conference or conferences taking advantage of creating more value for their media partner or partners and having football games played on non-traditional dates, college football dates. Now, and I don't even know if I want to go down this rabbit hole, but you know what? I'm not going to. I'm gonna step out of that. Helmer Henderson, why is an implosion necessary for Florida State to get scooped up? Florida could in 2 years show and reassure Big Ten it would be a good member. Thank you, Helmer Henderson, for your super chat, for your generosity once again to this channel. You know, that's a good comment. They could. I will still say the bigger the implosion, it's better for Florida State to get into the Power 2. Because they're just not the number one target. So they don't really, they want other schools to be able to follow them out the door. They want there to be an inventory problem for ESPN. They wanted a big implosion. But I also have to say, I understand what you're saying. In a couple years, hopefully Florida State has enough leverage in the courts, so they have some sort of victory in the courts where there is a bigger implosion anyway. Anyway, that's what they're working towards. But they're also working on this other track. They are. They become an even higher level research university. They're doing that with the state government support in the state of Florida. And they're doing other things that we can't even talk about here, Peek Around the Corner. That is a very good comment. Thank you, Mr. Helmer Henderson. You are correct. Thank you for this super chat. And thanks again for the super chat. Go Southeast, young man. MAC Action and Fun Belt already play on Tuesday and Wednesday. Yeah, I wish I could get more specific, Daniel. I do have particular specific days. But I can't talk about them. And I know that seems like I'm bailing out on you guys, but I have to do it this way. Else I could not have gotten this information out on August 9th. I'm battling in myself. Should I give a clue out on which days I'm talking about? I really can't because it might direct you to a certain conference. The days that I know, Daniel, is not a consistent this day of the week type of expanded schedule. It's specific days, like this particular day on the calendar, this conference is going to go in that spot. And they're also going to go into this spot. And those spots are not filled up by college football right now. You're going to know it when you see it. You're going to know it when you hear it. And that's the best I can say. So it's not like there's not a conference that's looking. I'll give an example. As far as I know, Peek Around the Corner does not know. This story that we're talking about is not about the Big Ten, the ACC, the Big 12, or the SEC playing a football game every Tuesday or every Wednesday or every Thursday or every Monday or every Sunday or whatever. It's not about that. But there are particular days in the calendar that are not occupied by college football right now. And there's at least a conference or conferences along with a media partner or media partners that have deep talks about implementing. I think we're going to hear about that. No question we're going to hear about that this year. Sometime this year. Could be tomorrow. I don't know. I haven't gotten where I've been sick for 6 days, but so just keep all that in mind. Okay, so we've gone through everything that I had for us. I'm going to open up the phone lines. I would appreciate other people talking and me listening. Let me just go back one more time to the Florida State Clemson. It's August 15th. And nothing has changed. We never believed they were going to file a notice of withdrawal because there was no advantage to do so. They did not. There seems to be some anger with some of the fan base of Florida State. I don't understand it. Doesn't make any sense. They've already, in one of their pleadings, stated if they get a summary judgment, a ruling that favors them, Florida State, that they would ask the court to go back and say that they filed a notice of withdrawal August 15th, 2023. It's already in their pleadings. They're in the courts battling this out as a member of the ACC, not as a withdrawn member of the ACC. They still get their revenue from media. Everything's the same as it is. And they're battling it out in the courts. They gain leverage. I happen not to agree. It's just we have a disagreement. I don't believe filing a notice of withdrawal puts any pressure on ESPN. I don't believe it puts any pressure on the ACC. I don't think the only pressure that the ACC and ESPN are getting right now are the court cases. And I'm going to get a whole lot of people upset with me when I say this. I think February 1st, 2025, it's going to be the same story. I think February 2nd, 2025, February 3rd, 2025 are going to look similar to what it is today. And I don't even know if I want to go down that rabbit hole today because my voice and I'm sick and whatever, and I have shown on my Twitter page, I don't think Florida State and Clemson are in the courts. I think they believe what they believe. I don't think they're trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. I think Clemson actually believes that if they left the conference, that the media rights go with them. I believe everything that Florida State is saying, they believe. They believe that the Gore runs until 2027, not a day further. But I also believe ESPN and the ACC believe in what they're pleading in the courts. I don't think ACC and ESPN are going, boy, we got every ACC school fooled except for those two, Florida State and Clemson. So I don't know enough because the media rights, the document, 99% of that is redacted. I know in the ACC bylaws, there's a part where the commissioner has a little bit of a wiggle room when it comes to negotiations, entering into or amending a current media rights agreement. It's in there. I showed it on Twitter. But I don't know if extending, if opting in, whatever you want to call this, I don't know if that falls in the commission. I don't know. They're going to have to battle it out. But there is a part in the ACC bylaws that under 5% annual change in your media rights agreement that the commissioner, they just need a vote from the executive committee. They don't need a vote on all the members. So again, there can be adjustment. They can be changes. But then there are other people who say, no, that you need to rip it all up and there needs to be a new Gore and everyone needs to sign it. Yeah, we'll find that out. But I don't think it's an automatic either way. I don't. I know a lot of people are really stuck in their positions and said, no matter what the ACC does, they're screwed. Or no matter what the ACC does, Florida State is screwed. I cannot get there because I can't even form really a strong opinion based on the media rights agreement because I can't see it. I can't. I'm reading the same thing you are. I know I'm not as smart as all of you are. I get that. But I can't see it. I cannot. There may be some lines in that media rights agreement that if I read it, I would say, holy smokes. There's no way that Gore goes to 2036. But maybe there's some lines in there where I would read it and I would say, whoa, it says here 2000, the Gore says 2036. If you read that, the year 2036 is all over the place. But it has to tie in with the media rights agreement, and I cannot see it. So in that part, I don't have a strong opinion. Anyways, let's open up the phone lines so that I can quit talking. The phone lines are now open. You can talk about anything you want. Your injuries that are going on in college football. The Iowa Hawkeye quarterback battle. The Texas running back. Is Ollie Gordon, is he injured or not? There was a little bit of rumors that Ollie Gordon had an injury. Is that true? Is it true? I know my Darius Taylor, the great running back from Minnesota, he might have tweaked a little bit of a hamstring. He might have. There's rumors about that.
Call from
JD.
JD, Mr. Seminole, The floor is yours, but before I give you the floor, 9 days away, Florida State, Georgia Tech. The line has dropped to 11.5. Florida State is an 11.5 point favorite. Is there any news, concerns about injuries, anything going on with the roster, any battles that are going on that we need to know about it? Then the floor is totally yours, JD. But I need some Seminole football information.
How much time do you have?
Yeah, just give me a little bit of a rundown, and then you can go on and talk about whatever you want to talk about, sir.
People are very excited from what they're seeing. FSU media is notoriously, since the 5-year slump and the fan base started coming down hard on them by their, I guess some of the prognostications during the Willie years, they initially thought it was just going to keep moving on, and then it didn't. It took a nosedive. Yeah. Ever since then, the media members have been very cautious. So they usually undersell it a little bit.
Yeah.
They've been really, really pleased with everything they've seen. What was really telling for me is when FSU went to Jacksonville last week for a couple days. They do that every fall camp. They go to Jacksonville. The Jacksonville media is what caught my attention. When you got Matt Hayes and some of the other ones, I listened to some of their radio shows, and it was always the same thing. They're really big. They're really athletic. They're really fast. FSU offensive line could be one of the best in the country, and that's according to media members that are Gator fans.
Mm-hmm.
Their secondary might be one of the best in the country. Their defense might be one of the best in the country. Their overall rushing attack might be one of the best in the country. So this is things that we had heard. You got to get up and line up and play somebody else, to get a good indication. But DJ's playing well. The receiving core has been behind because most of them are new or guys that have never had to be thrust into the spotlight before. Too many drops early in the camp, but they seem to be turning a corner. And so there's just a lot of optimism. I mean,
can I ask you about one player?
Go ahead.
Toafili.
Yes.
Okay, so I look, I'm human, right? I fall in the same trap. I'm Greg the Cooler, except for this year I'm Greg the Gold, okay? This year I'm Greg the Gold. But for years I'm Greg the Cooler because I tend to do the same thing every single year. I fall for certain teams. I fall for certain players. I fall in love. And when I fall in love, I can't fall out of love, okay? One of the type of players that I fall in love with are running backs like Preston Greensboro, says North Carolina State. Good example. I fell in love with them. I can't get out of love, so I'm going to go down with the ship. I'm not a reasonable man, JD. Okay? That's why I'm Greg the Cooler. But I fall in love with running backs who, to me, are like, man, they can play. They can play. But because of certain circumstances, they're around a whole lot of great football players. They got running backs ahead of them. They don't quite get the rock as much as I would like them to get. Phil Maffa is a great example. I didn't think he ever got the ball enough, but now he gets the ball at Clemson. Well, Toafili is one of those guys for me. Now, I'm not blaming Mike Novell. I'm not blaming Florida State because they've got so many weapons, running backs ahead of them. I get it. But Toafili, to me, is like a guy who, I think he's ready to be a superstar. So my question to you is he ready to become, is he still going to be like RB2? Is he behind Holmes? Or is he going to be the guy? What is the plans for Toafili this year?
He's going to be doing everything. He's going to run the ball. He'll line up in the slot. He'll be involved in the running game, the passing game. He'll be involved in everything. Same thing with Jalen Lucas.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who Jalen Lucas is?
Mm-hmm.
He was the transfer from Indiana. He was, a special teams All-American a couple years ago, and I think he was hurt last year. He's now on the team. Toafili has had glowing praise in camp. The other thing, FSU doesn't have any Dalvin Cooks or anything. They don't have that. What they do have, though, is, and this is by, not just FSU media, but other media that I've seen that have watched them practice, they have 7 guys that could possibly start in the ACC in the running back room. But it doesn't mean they're going to start at Clemson. But you understand what I'm saying. They got 7 guys that could start. They got running backs for every type of scenario. They got speedsters. They got bruisers. They got all-purpose backs. They've got every type that you need, and which is fantastic. The depth is crazy in there. But the big question mark going into camp was, okay, how does DJ play? How does he adapt to the system? And then none of the wide receivers that were on the roster, all very talented, but none of them have ever had to be the guy, Mm-hmm. And so now you got Malik Benson is stepping up. He's a transfer from Alabama.
Yep.
A couple of the other ones have been banged up, but they're starting to come around. And I'm not saying anybody played bad, but nobody was really taking the reins of being the guy. But the media has been kind of hinting around that you're going to see a lot of Toafili in the slot or in passing situations, and you'll see him in the backfield. So you're kind of getting an idea that as long as they have 2 to 3 wide receivers that are step up and play consistent, that the running backs like Toafili and Lucas and a few of the others, they could pick up the slack.
Yeah.
And the offense should be really explosive. I would say this year's offense would be more akin to, you remember the Saban offenses before he decided to really start flinging it around, which was really heavy run game and then some good downfield passing? That's what you'd probably envision FSU's offense this year. They're going to lean heavily on the run. If they blow out opponents, it's usually going to be second half because they just beat them to death.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, that maybe they become even more explosive than what we think. But the defense looks really good. The special team looks excellent. They're both their kicker and their punter are up for All-American. I think they're on the All-American preseason All-American, or they're on the awards watch list and so on. Special teams seem to be fantastic. So defense looks great. Special teams looks great. Offense looks really good and could potentially be great. So I'm really excited. I just got to see them play. And do I expect they're just going to blow out Georgia Tech? No. I think Georgia Tech's a competent team that I think if they blow them out, it'll be a second half deal. But it's first games. You don't see a lot of blowouts in the first game, and who knows? Georgia Tech might be a really good team. We don't know.
Yep.
We don't know. But I'm anxious to watch them play. But no, Toafili's not the forgotten man, if that's your question. Not at all.
Yep. I appreciate you talking about him because I love the dude. So, anyways, go ahead. I know you. Look, the floor is yours. Thanks for answering my football question. But when you call JD, you can show what we talk about. So go ahead, let her rip, sir.
No, I'm going to call in and say I think I took the L weeks ago,
mm-hmm.
but I'm going to take the L again today. I absolutely believed, and I had very reliable sources offline that led me to believe that an announcement this summer was very likely. Now, I will say most of the fan base backed off of the August 15th announcement. Those that really follow realignment, about 3.5 weeks ago.
Uh-huh.
When we realized, no, it's not. It's most likely not happening. I know I backed off, and I think there's the receipts out there to prove it. But it doesn't matter. I talked about it. I thought it was going to happen this summer regardless, and my rationale was, how would an implosion happen? The lawsuit, a result in a lawsuit's not going to, in other words, a lawsuit that could potentially take 3 to 4 years only allows the ACC to dig in their heels. So how could an implosion happen as the lawsuit being the catalyst? Well, that still doesn't make sense if it takes that long. The only thing that made sense for an implosion was to announce and then force ESPN's hand. And that's just been some speculation that, to be honest with you, most of us had. And, whether something changed or whether we were just wrong, I don't know. Could have been they were planning to do something and then they just didn't. They felt like it was better to do something else. Maybe their lawyers convinced them not to do anything. Again, we don't know, and if we ever know, we'll only know when this is all over.
Mm-hmm.
So, and by then, I mean, there's really no victory lap for us to take because, one is the only victory for me is to get out of the ACC and have a great landing spot.
Mm-hmm.
When it happens, I'm not in control. I'm just going off of what other people say. Now, what really tipped me off was, I don't know if it was probably three plus weeks ago. This one particular individual, I appreciate what he says. He doesn't talk much, kind of cryptic. But from what I gathered, there was possibly opportunities, but FSU knew there were better opportunities in the future. And I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means it was a high buyout figure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just don't know. So there could have been some validity to the belief something was going to happen this summer.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a better deal than they didn't. Better deals were coming in the future, so they didn't take it. Again, I don't know. And it's not an excuse that I can put out there because I don't know. And I'm being redundant here. Mm-hmm. But it's just, I'm not in that circle. I know people that associate with the decision makers, but even the decision makers aren't really talking much. They'll say some things and some things will get out, but they don't talk a lot. And maybe some of the things that I've thought to be true in the end, were maybe wishful thinking or maybe best case scenario type scenario, because there's always a best case scenario. Everybody would have liked everything that's happened in the last, 9 months or so on, or 8 to 9 months. They've tried to get an implosion to happen sooner. Mm-hmm. They've worked to get one to happen. They would have loved for one to happen this spring, and it just didn't. And so there's been times I've questioned some of the things that you've said, but as of right now, it's been checking out because not that I don't trust you.
No,
I do trust you.
Yep. No.
It's that some of the media, I don't trust all of them, and I have my reasons because I see their irregularities on their reporting, and I make mental notes of it. So that doesn't mean they're nefarious and they have some grand plan against FSU. I don't mean that. I mean, people are just trying to report the news. But some of them have their biases, and I recognize that. But yeah, no, I felt like I wanted to be the first in because I've tried to call in a couple of times to take the L recently, and I couldn't get through. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to jump the line here.
Well, you're a good man. You're a good man, JD. And again, the goal is for Florida State to get out of the ACC. And, they're going to get out of the ACC. So it's just the way it is. I've been consistent with that, and the chatter behind the curtain's consistent with that, right?
Sure.
It might not all be good news for Florida State fans, that chatter, but also that chatter is real consistent. Florida State wants out, and you're not going to be able to keep it. At some point, there's going to be a settlement. At some point, there just is. It's just the way it is, guys. It might not be the number that Florida State wants, or it might not be the number the ACC wants, but it's going to happen.
Well, I've caught some flack because I know your FSU Money Perch had talked about the Big 12 option.
Yeah.
And I have heard that from other places.
Yeah.
Something somewhat similar, and I've been just trying to break it to some of the fans is that it's not the desired.
Yeah.
It's not the desired destination. I mean, it's not the desired path.
No.
But there is a scenario.
Yeah.
Where it would happen.
It's not the desired path, and it might not be the path that happens. I mean, a lot of things would have to go a certain way for the Big 12 to be able to get Florida State and Clemson. And plus, the Big 12 is going to have to belly up to the bar. There's a whole bunch of stuff, right?
Yes, sir.
The only thing is, I would argue is, and that we know, because it's an option. It's an option that Florida State's looking at. But no, they've got they're working on other stuff, man. And that is with the Big Ten and SEC, and they're working for a big implosion, and we'll see what happens, sir. But I appreciate you calling.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I'm going to leave this with this, that any FSU fans that are listening, this is my personal opinion from what I've been able to tell. If they can get out, I would say by 2026 and be in the Power 2, they're not going to the Big 12. I think the Big 12 option was, if this legal, like you had talked a few weeks ago, that if the legal battle looks to get just drug out for years, the Big 12 would help them get out, and it would maybe be a better financial scenario for FSU until they can get to 2030, 2031.
Yeah.
And that's the way I understand it to be, if that's the option.
Yep.
And you can correct me if I have it wrong. But anyway, Thank you, sir. I hope you get to feeling better.
You got it. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
All right, bye-bye.
Appreciate the call. Adam, Jeremy, Christopher, Struthers, and Irritator, North Carolina. You've all been gifted a membership by yours truly. So go check out our membership episode only. Hold on here.
Call from
Immaculate.
Immaculate is on the line. The floor is yours. But first of all, before I give you the floor, let me do this. Hold on one second here. Let me do this super chat by the Evil Badger, Ryan Willie. Finally getting my appetite back from COVID. Plus, I received my season tickets. I'll be celebrating an upset win over Bama, and the Axe will stay in Madison.
Fighting words.
Thank you, Ryan Willie, for the super chat. I do see that Van Dyke was named the starter. Will Howard was named the starter for Ohio State. Van Dyke for the Badgers. Thank you, Ryan Willie, for your continuous generosity to our channel. Big game against Bama, and of course, at the end of the season this year on Thanksgiving, holy smokes. Minnesota, Wisconsin. Holy. That's going to be a battle. Ain't going to be like last year, Mr. Ryan Willie, but thank you for the super chat. Before we get on to Mr. Immaculate, I saw your comment here about the New Hampshire quarterback.
Hey, true.
Greg can't help but fall in love with players from New Hampshire. So I was watching. I've been sick, right? So I've been my waking hours. I've been watching some tape, and I was watching the 2023 New Hampshire versus the Delaware Fighting Blue Hens football game. You can find that on YouTube, the full game. The first drive of when New Hampshire got the football, Max Brosmer, the quarterback, he's doing this, under center and shotgun, these quick passes. He knows exactly, he scans the whole football field. He's getting the ball out. He's running around. They drive all the way down the field. He throws a beautiful pass. The guy's about to score, the receiver, about a 15-yard play. And, of course, the receiver fumbles the ball right before he gets into the end zone. New Hampshire lost the ball. But that drive, it occurred to me like a thunderbolt out of the sky that Max Brosmer reminds me of Rich Gannon. When he was a quarterback in college and when he was a quarterback in the pros. Now, Rich Gannon was a Minnesota Viking quarterback. I remember he came from Delaware. I remember when he was when the Vikings drafted him, I said, who's Rich Gannon? Then I watched tapes of him playing in college. So I have all this memory flooding back to me. I watched the 1986 Delaware game, where it was Delaware versus Maine, and it was Rich Gannon, and that's who Max Brosmer reminds me of. If Max Brosmer plays like Rich Gannon, Immaculate, buckle up, brace for impact. The Gophers are going to surprise a lot of people this year. Go ahead, the floor is yours.
Well, I just got one thing to say about that. I just want to make sure that when you watched this, you weren't kind of thinking that was him playing against the Wolverines. I know Delaware and the Wolverines kind of look similar, but it's just a very different thing. See how he does.
Well,
hopefully, in case he does well, but
you bring up a good point. In 2025, we're going to be seeing a lot more of the Delaware Fighting Blue Hens with those helmets.
Now, that's one team that Michigan cannot sign for an out-of-conference game, like a cupcake game at the beginning of the season. Like, how confusing would
Yeah. Good point.
That would be something. But, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of go in before I go in and say, I know you take a lot of hacks from people, and I get it to some degree, but for my own taste, I'd rather have someone that every once in a while, when they're, giving me the peek around the corner, so to speak, is telling me something that I don't like or that I don't want to hear. Because then I know that person is not just pandering to me for my views, my likes, my money, whatever. So I know you might take some crap, and people who are angry tend to be loud. So, a smaller number of people can seem like a lot.
Yeah.
But you do good stuff, and just don't. I got a small taste of what you do with, right? So that's just speaking from that. Don't let that really get you too much, or at least try not to. I know it's impossible to let it not get you fully.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I think that's how most people feel. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Now, in regards to like my friend JD was saying before, and what you're talking about in terms of the ACC situation, FSU, I just keep telling people, look, this is not a bubble situation. It doesn't exist disconnected from the rest of everything going on. Now, maybe when they first started their lawsuits, when they first started this, they saw, a timeline that by now maybe they could have made their announcement. Things haven't worked that way. The settlement's going on longer. ESPN hasn't made a decision on their whole deal. And I've seen a lot of people say, oh, it's guaranteed. And maybe it is. But I think one more thing I want to define here is an opt-in clause. That is not a negotiation. That's simply saying you're continuing as it was exactly. There's no negotiating to it. So when we have Phillips coming out saying, no, we're talking about some details, we're doing some negotiating, that is essentially his way of saying they're not opting in right now. That's my take on it, and I could be wrong, but that's what that is to me. And I had this in chats with people on X, and I see the same thing coming up. And they're like, well, they're just talking over some details. I'm like, well, then they're not opting in. Like, any change at all is them opting out. Go ahead.
I don't see.
Can I add something to that might be?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that I think that they're not going to have a deal.
They're not going to have a new deal, or
they could have a new deal. I'm just saying the opt-ins for this exact thing. Now, if they're negotiating, they're talking about something. If any changes at all, then that's not.
But now again, what I'm about to bring up might be different than what you're talking about. I think they can change it a little bit, and still have it be the same. Like, there is room for, like, let me see if I can, hold on a second here. You know what? I should have prepared this. I brought this up on my Twitter account, and I may be going down a rabbit hole that you're not even, like.
Yeah. And if you're talking like details on what they could or couldn't change, I'm not going to be able to speak on that. I would think, though, that anything that might be taking away some value from it would have to be revoted. Period.
Okay, so this is ACC. I don't know if you can look at your phone, or if you're looking at a TV or whatever, but I'm going to put this up for everybody to see. I put this up 4 days ago. My goodness. I've been literally like sleeping half these days. So the last 4 days are a blur to me. ACC bylaw 2.3, Office of the Commissioner, Q.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Of course, it's hard to see. I'm going to put up on the screen. It says under Q, media rights. Now, this is the ACC bylaws, okay? This is the commissioner's authority. Negotiate media rights agreements on behalf of the conference, provided that all material media rights agreements shall be subject to approval by the board. Under Section 2.10.3, and all other media rights agreements shall be subject to approval by executive committee. Material media rights agreements shall include any media rights agreement that provides an average annual value equal to or greater than 5% of the conference's aggregate gross revenues during the most recently completed fiscal year, or that otherwise is deemed material by the chair or the commissioner, or that must be approved by the board pursuant blah 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 blah. So,
if you equal to or greater.
Yeah. So anything below 5%, now it's annual. So it's not like, so anything lower than 5% is not a material media rights agreement. That's not what the definition is. But I would perceive it as it still needs approval by the executive committee. I have run this by. I'm sorry, what was that?
I'm just saying, well, I'm not actually, like, that's kind of talking about if there's going to be, like, a small change.
Yeah. That's what but that's all that's, like, I think there can be some small changes. That's all I was getting at. I
agree with that. And I said, but I don't know who's on the executive committee right now. We looked previously to see who was on in 22. I don't know now. I don't like to dive too far into details. I'm kind of more of a big guy.
Yeah.
But to me, that's a small. We're talking about a small change. Small change.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to bring in the whole membership to vote. You have an executive committee that's brought on for these type of details. But what I'm saying is something larger than that. Like if they're trying to renegotiate down something, and finding value is hard. Like there's money value, but there's amount of coverage, amount of times on TV, times when you're on. Like these type of negotiations, they're talking about making little things. That's not an opt-in. An opt-in is like, okay, this is how it is. We're just continuing it forward. That doesn't mean that I'm saying they can't renegotiate a deal and stay working with ESPN. People kind of conflate to saying and then it's like speaking about myself, but opting in to me is just you're just continuing on forward. And what you're talking about negotiation, whether it's a small or a big one, and who has to approve, that's another conversation. Like I'm not saying that they don't end up making a deal. I just think that if they were going to opt in, they would opt in. Like just opt in. Like what do we wait? Like are you waiting to find out if these schools are going to stay forever? I mean, I think we're in agreement that at some point in time in the future, Florida State and Clemson are going to get out, and maybe some others. So sometime between 27 and 36, this conference is not going to look like it does now. So if I'm ESPN, why would you agree to not try to have something in agreement, even if it means like we're paying you the same now, but this is how much you're going to lose if those schools they'll have to agree at a time, because if they agree to this opt-in right now, they're stuck with that for 9 years. That's all I'm saying. Is like I think that they'll come to a deal. It's just they're not opting in, and I think people conflate that with saying, "Oh, they're not going to have any deal. They're dead." I'm not going that far. Maybe someone else will. But that was my thought on that, because I think Phillips has even basically let us know that without directly telling us. I did kind of want to briefly talk about that G5 meeting, if you don't mind. Like I'll be real quick about it. Mostly I want to talk Super League, but in that article you mentioned, there's one line in there that once I read it, I was pretty much done. Like I know he goes on and he kind of opines and gives his opinion on the tournament, and he asks them all some questions, and they're kind of like, whatever. But the serious part in there is, I'm going to read it here, is call it a G5 summit where conference leaders plan to discuss some of the most pressing issues upon the membership. He explains the bottom half of the 30. That was kind of an unnecessary point by him. Private equity, it says such as NCAA governance right off the bat. That's what they're talking about. Private equity's interest and house settlement-related revenue sharing model. Once I read that line right there, the rest was, I'm sorry, I respect the hell out of Dellinger. I think he's our number one guy for letting us know things. But it becomes fluff after that. This is their worry. This is why they're meeting. What's going to be in that governance? Well, they know, so they're preparing for it as a whole. So are some of these, Dellinger's already told us that there's probably going to be a new division. So some of them are probably looking like, are we going to go up? Is there going to be something here at this level that's worth staying for? And so maybe that's where that game comes into play. But to me, with this happening this week, they're getting prepared, right? Like, so for people watching the big story, I think that this is a big tell that those schools are getting ready for that to come out. Because remember, all objections had to be filed either by the end of last week or by the end of this week. So they're meeting next Monday, right after all that's done and over with, to be prepared for that to come out. So that's my thought on that is, the tournament, calling it an NIT, it's kind of a slap in the face. But to me, that's small time compared to the fact that these guys are getting ready for this to hit. And it might come quick and fast. And so they might come while they're meeting. Who knows? And in terms of the Super League, man, I've got kind of a view on what it actually is. And I didn't want to go too much into it because I think this is going to piss off some people too. But I don't think it ever involves the likes of Big Ten and the SEC. Because for them to have teams then get involved with schools from the Big 12 and the ACC, maybe, whatever, the most likely outcome is that a medium is found of payouts. I know, the talk is that private equity will pay way more than what they're getting. From who? Like, who's paying them? That's just another mouth you have to feed. And like you're saying, why would the networks pay so much more for this? One, you got to have teams you want to have a bunch of teams that have good records. You're only going to have that if they're playing some teams that they beat. If you're taking your top brands and you're making them have losing records or 500 records all the time, that's actually not better for business, in my opinion. Because the big amount of their money is in the big games and now going towards the postseason. I don't know. I don't think it's that great of a model. So what I think is going on here, based upon seeing schools like West Virginia and Syracuse being connected to it, I think it's kind of like the best of the rest type of a scenario where they try to come together and form a league that can try to maximize what's left. So the PR talk is it's a super league. Well, I guess. And, kind of the recent book out about it really changed, which was interesting to me. And I'll say his name here. I don't care. Greg Swaim came out with a much different projection of it, which I found was interesting. I didn't really believe it at first, but looking at him, he's pretty firm on 32. That to me looks like 2 16-team conferences. Well, that's not going to be if it's mostly Big Ten and SEC. And that's kind of where this looks to me, is like this is a possible idea to try to make the most out of who's left. It would be, a 16-team Big 12 and a 16-team ACC. I still don't think it's happening, but I think people need to kind of face the fact that there is no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that all of a sudden some money out of somewhere is going to come in and pay these schools, $200 million something per team to be in a league like this. To me, it's very reminiscent of like a con. Like these guys are selling this wonderful story to try to break things up, to try to get this right now when all of this is malleable. But when you're hearing things about conferences possibly wanting to form their own, internal conference tournaments, that's just one more suggestion to the opposite. That's not about working into a super league. That's about improving their conference individually as a whole. Mm-hmm. So, and people just kind of need to be aware, like terminology gets used sometimes just as marketing and promotional, and it sounds good. But from everything I'm seeing, that super league idea is not top of the top. It's the next group trying to find a way to make as much as possible to keep up. I don't know. I know some people are not going to like that and disagree with it, and that's fine. But to me, it's pie in the sky to think that some group is going to come along and pay, and they're going to gather up 32, 40, 60 teams from all these conferences and pay them just way more than what the Big Ten and the SEC are making right now, because who's going to pay them? ESPN's not going to do it. Fox is not going to do it. The last thing they want to see is college football go the route of the NFL, where they only have one entity to negotiate with, because they will lose that every single time. And so, maybe they would have to pay that much more. because they'd have one entity to deal with. And so I think that the conferences might be using this idea to then maybe get a little bit more money out of the networks. And that's probably it.
I got one question for you, Iowa Hawkeye football.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Brendan Sullivan, and I said at the time, was a sneaky pickup for Iowa because I was getting excited about him being a full-time starter for Northwestern this year. It might be Sullivan's team, first week of the season, second week of the season, third week of the season. What are your feelings about that when I say that this could become Sullivan's team?
I think it's entirely possible. If we look at Cade last year, he did okay early on. It wasn't anything spectacular, but he had no backup challenger. I mean, for Deacon Hill, we finally did see what he had. He nothing. I don't know why they didn't play the guy that was behind Deacon. There's some viewing of practice where he did okay, but for whatever reason, the coaching staff was not high on that third guy. But now, I think Sullivan's kind of a little bit more of a proven thing. He wasn't the starter over there, but he played a bit and had good numbers. And if Cade, they do not have much time to make this decision. If he's, according to what we just saw, he's not doing well, they're going to have to make a decision because ISU is early in the season. And that is not to lose. Like, it's not. And they are not a pushover team. So if Cade, I think Cade might get the start in their first game against Illinois State. I do. But I would not be surprised if they're quick to pull him if he does not look good, if he can't run this offense, and if Sullivan can't. So as far as being the first week starter, possible. But I think the odds go up that he actually does not look good in the game and gets pulled, and Sullivan goes in. And then we even see Sullivan as the starter in the ISU game.
Yeah.
So that's my thought, and I'm real happy he's there because last year it was just a bad quarterback situation for the team.
Yeah. All right, man.
So
Appreciate the call.
Jumping on that Super League stuff because I think people are being kind of taken a little bit on it. So we'll see.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you. Great call.
Have a good one.
Great call by Immaculate. Thank you, Mick Stevens, for your super chat. Thank you so much, TCU Horned Frog, Mick Stevens. Thank you for helping us keep the lights on. Thank you for your generosity. The phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. Yes, RG3 and Sam Ponder are both gone. Now, from ESPN, I remember, and maybe I'll try to find an old tweet of mine, but I remember when Sam Ponder was taken away from College Game Day. I like Sam Ponder. I like her in the college football realm. I'm not an NFL guy. I mean, I'll watch it. I root for the Vikings, whatever. But it's nothing like my Golden Gophers. I like Sam Ponder. So when she went to the NFL, I haven't watched her. I don't watch NFL. So I haven't seen Sam Ponder for years. I know she's been on TV, but I haven't watched her. So I'm hoping she comes back to the college football world, like Fox, Big Ten Network, SEC Network. Probably not the SEC Network because that's ESPN. Big Ten Network or Fox. I hope she does it. Now RG3. I haven't really watched them, to be honest with you. So I don't really have. I'm not for or against. But I would like to see Sam Ponder back in the mix. Immaculate says, I think we'll see them both at Fox. The problem is so, we're 9 days away from the start of the season. Things are already going, right? Production. These shows have already done their run-throughs, and it's so late in the season. So late in the season. The Venn diagram of UFOs in college football realignment is apparently a completely overlapping circle. I will say this, Rock and Rant. Supposedly, George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell have they know of a video, and it's going to be shown here before the end of the year, a video of a trans-medium vehicle going in and out of the water. So I'm waiting to see that video. I know there's stories out there of a Chinese drone that can kind of go in and out of the water, but I'm hoping for to see that video. Oh Lord, Jeremy Corbell. So now this is the problem here. Tumastis says, oh Lord, don't ever lose your curiosity, ladies and gentlemen. I don't care if it's coming from Jerry Corbell. I don't care if it's coming from Joe Z. I don't care if it's coming from Immaculate. I don't care if it's coming from Rock and Rant. If there's something there that is unknowable, that is unidentified, that nobody knows exactly what it is, I'm interested in it. I am. And I don't care where it's coming from. There are things going on in our atmosphere, in our waters, in our space that we don't know what's going on. It doesn't mean it's aliens. It doesn't mean that at all. It could mean that, but it doesn't mean that at all. It just means it's unidentified. There are unidentified submersible. There are unidentified flying objects. And you've seen that jellyfish go over the military base in Iraq, I think it was. That jellyfish looking thing, what was it? You've seen videos of orbs. What are they? Are they all Mylar balloons? Really? Maybe they are. And now we're going to I want to see the videos. And I want to see things get solved. I want to see people say, no, looking at that, no, that really is a bird. That really is a bug flying close to the lens. That I want more and more of that stuff to come out. I want the people say, no, you know what? That sensor in the airplane did not work. That sensor, that radar did not work. It showed us a blip and it wasn't really. That's all good. More information, the better. Not less. I don't like people saying, nah. None of it means nothing. So let Jerry Corbell come out with all the videos. And then if they all get shot down, that's great. And if they all can't get shot down, look, what happened in 2004, the Nimitz, 2004 Nimitz, none of that has been shot down. More than one sensor picked up on that Tic Tac. You had that pilot who was the top pilot of that whole Navy ship, followed that Tic Tac. None of that has been shot down. What was that Tic Tac? That's all I'm going to say. What was it? Don't ever lose your curiosity. That's all I'm saying. All right, we're going to shut this live show down. I am very shocked that we got through 2 hours of it. I do appreciate you all from coming on in. I appreciate the great comments, the long phone calls. JD and Immaculate, thank you for taking over because I'm about done. So hopefully I regroup and come back tomorrow with another live show. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. The shows are going to get better when I get healthier. Subscribe and open up your notifications. Smash the like button. I appreciate you all from coming on in today. And until next time, from all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.